what is it about the GMAT that scares people? Well, first, the reason why the GMAT exam was defined or was created was because everybody around you would be coming from different backgrounds. There would be engineers, there would be lawyers, there would be accountants. They would all be having different educational background. You cannot actually compare 70% grade in college A with 75% grade in college B, because the two colleges may have really different ways of grading. Similarly, you cannot compare someone who's been working in an IT domain with someone who's been working in a finance domain. Once again, the nature of job is totally different. But GMAT is one level playing ground where everybody who applies for the B school would be taking the exam. So if you've got a score of 700 and you've got a score of 750, you still may know who's a better performer. Well, at least on that day. Maybe a bit unfair, because that may not be a true indicator of who you are or what you could do, but that's precisely the way it works. The second reason why GMAT is so important is because it's a fairly good indicator of how well you're going to perform in the first year of your education. Having said that, a lot of consulting firms do not consider this to be true, but most of the admission committees do. So you would need to be very careful when you have a really low GMAT score and you're pushing for admission. You need to make sure that you can explain why, in spite of having a low GMAT score, you have what it takes to perform well academically, and do well irrespective of what happens. Now, this is where we talk about the importance of knowing what the exam is. A lot of students come up to me and ask me, how much time do I need to prepare for the exam? Typically, you would need about 3 hours every day for 3.5 to 4 months, and that would be looking at a score of 700 to 720. If you need a score more than that, which I think you should if you're looking for A scholarship or B admission to the top schools, you should be looking at maybe 5 months preparation. You would need to do all the mock exams that are available. You would need to go through the theory, be totally confident of what is it the GMAT wants to test you on, and that is another challenge in itself, because there's actually a couple of things that GMAT looks out for in any answer, which I'll come to in a second. I would be talking a bit about that. But it's also important to know how the marking goes. If anyone tells you that they know how GMAT is marked, don't believe them. There's only one body, the governing body of the GMAT, which knows how GMAT is marked. There's no one else in this world who would have any clue whatsoever. But there are certain statistics that you can pick up as you keep going, and I've done a few of them, and I'm going to present them to you. The first thing, speed. It is, once again, a lot of students come up and say that, well, the first 5 or the first 7 questions are really important, and whatever you get there, that kind of determines your final score. Well, that's true in a sense, but not totally. It's actually the first 50% of your questions which are really important. So try and put about 60% of the time for the first 50% of the questions. If you're able to do that, then you would have a fairly good time management skill, as well as you will not be rushing at the end, which brings me to the next fact about GMAT, which is try and complete all the questions. If you see that you're unable to complete the question, don't guess. Worse, don't leave out the questions. So the best thing is complete all the questions with an educated guess if you can. The second best thing is guess, and the worst thing is leave out the question. So never do any one of these 3. Ideally, you should have ample time to finish up the questions, because even if you've done really good in the first 50% of the time, if you've not dedicated enough time for the last maybe 3 or 4 questions, the exam picks that up. The exam has an algorithm which can actually pick this up, and thereby what it does is it skews down your score by a large extent. If you're unable to complete the test, what that means is you not only have got those wrong, but you've also not given enough time or you've given more than enough time for the previous questions, which means you are at an advantage for the previous questions, and thereby that is not good. The third thing is the tough questions generally appear when you're doing well. Well, that's true, but do not demarcate tough questions by topics. Don't say that a permutation combination or a probability question is a tough one, and thereby if it comes, it's a fairly good indicator that I'm doing well. Well, I got 760 on my GMAT, and I think I just got one permutation combination question. So that doesn't really speak anything about the toughness or the present status of your exam. The final thing about the GMAT is do not get continuous questions wrong. If you want to get 5 questions wrong, a good idea would be getting 5 in a well spaced out interval. Don't get all 5 bang in one go. That's not going to work. If you get all 5 questions wrong in one go, what the problem with that is that brings you down so much that you would need to get not only the next 5 questions but also another maybe 3 or 4 questions to bring it back to where you were originally. Now this may be a bit pessimistic, but this is very close to how it works. So if you get 5 questions wrong on the trot, irrespective of what happens, you kind of cannot get more than 650 on your GMAT, which is not a good thing. Now having said that, and now that you know a bit more about the GMAT and its importance, what role it plays in terms of an admission process, let's talk about what is it that I'm doing. So I represent a company called General Education, and General Education, we as a company have been there for a long time, guiding students, trying to help them figure out which school they want to go to, helping them with their admission essays, helping them with their recommendation letters, telling them what they should do, what they should not do, having a couple of mock interviews, preparing them basically through the entire admission cycle. Now General Education has now started a GMAT coaching. So I would be taking part in the GMAT coaching, and I would be your tutor, going through various things that GMAT wants you to know. I would not be having a very full-fledged long discussion. I would be talking about the tips, the tricks. You would be required to do a lot of homework before you come for classes, and we would be having a very, very nice hand-holding for amateurs as well as for beginners. If you've taken the exam before or you've not, doesn't really matter. Depending on what you need, we have a very tailor-made service for you. So definitely visit our website and or get in touch, leave a comment, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. And that's how we as a company are reaching out to students, because we realized that by the time students had finished off with the GMAT and they came and approached us and wanted to get their admission cycle rolling, it was a bit too late. So we wanted to help students get a good GMAT score at the beginning, so it's like a full cycle, and all the way to their visa. So we're going to do everything for you. Do you actually need a tutor? Well, you could, and I think you would. Let me give you a small example. Let's look at a couple of sentences from sentence correction. So GMAT has 2 sections, the verbal section and the quant section. The verbal section is divided into 3 parts: sentence correction, critical reasoning, reading comprehension. From sentence correction, I'll give you a small question, and let's see if you can figure this out, or maybe a couple of questions. So the first question is, my situation improved when I came to the United States. So my situation improved when I came to the United States. Now this is a sentence which you may think and say that there's nothing wrong in that, or you may say that yeah, it doesn't really sound right. So what I'm going to teach you in my classes is a scientific method that we do not use our ears at all. We would be looking at the sentence, breaking it up into different sections. We would be using the rules that we've learned and try and use all of that so that we have a concrete scientific answer as to why the sentence is wrong. So the way you debug the sentence is look at the pronouns. What do you think the pronouns are? When is a pronoun? If you guys haven't figured that out, well, you should definitely require a tutoring. But when is a pronoun? A when is a pronoun of time. So when is never used with event. So my situation improved when I came to the United States. My coming to the United States is an event. You may tell me that, but I came to the United States at a particular time. Yes, you did. But it is not because of the time that my situation improved. It is because of my coming to the United States that my situation improved. So thereby what I'm trying to say is that it is driven by the event which has a when before it, which is wrong. So you should change when and make it after. So where do I use when? When it was 2 o'clock. When the clock struck 3. You see, all of these are dependent on a time and never an event. A similar example is solar eclipse is a phenomenon where the moon comes in between the sun and the earth. Once again, if you've not figured it out by now, where